The thunders pounding on my front door echoed like a demolition crew at work. I shot awake, my heart hammering against my ribs. Duke, my K9 partner, exploded off the bed in a frenzy of barking, sounding like a demon unleashed. Snatching my Glock and badge, I bolted towards the door, still swimming in sleep. But my cop instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. They never shut off. Not even at dawn. Peeking through the peephole almost made me choke with laughter, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Two guys stood on my porch, their uniforms looking like they'd been bought off a clearance rack on a shady website. Their badges featured a ridiculous eagle emblem, but instead of any official government insignia, they read Hoa Law Enforcement and Hoa Police. The nerve, as if that was a real thing. Yet, here they were, puffed up like pigeons, hands resting on flimsy belts around their waists. One of them was even sporting sunglasses before sunrise, like he was about to star in a bad action movie. The other clutched a clipboard like it was the Holy Grail. I wrenched the door open, keeping my expression carefully neutral. "Can I help you?" The sunglass-wearing goon cleared his throat. "Sir, we're with the Homeowners Association Law Enforcement Division, and we're here regarding multiple violations against community policy." I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "Hoa Law Enforcement," I repeated slowly, deliberately. "You do realize that's not a real thing, right?" Clipboard guy puffed out his chest even further. "Sir, your vehicle is an unauthorized commercial vehicle. It must be removed immediately, or we will be forced to issue fines and take further action." My vehicle? I glanced at my driveway and nearly lost it. They were talking about my police cruiser, my fully Marr County Sheriff's vehicle, the same one I used to chase down criminals and respond to emergencies. Before I could even string together a sarcastic reply, a voice sliced through the morning air like a rusty blade. "That's right, I told you he was breaking the rules." Oh, God, no. It was her, Karen, the nightmare of the neighborhood, the self-appointed queen of the Hoa, a woman who ruled our little gated community like a despot, slapping fines on every minor infraction and terrorizing anyone who dared cross her. She strutted towards my porch, a smug, self-satisfied smile plastered across her face. Her bleached blonde bob was sculpted into a perfect weapon. Her yoga pants stretched so tight they looked like they were cutting off circulation, and she held a Starbucks cup like a regal scepter. "I warn you, Sheriff," she said, dripping venom into my title like it was an insult. "The Hoa rules clearly state that no commercial or government vehicles can be parked in residential areas overnight, and that thing." She waved a dismissive hand at my cruiser. "Double quotes dot is violating our standards. Also, your dog is a breed that isn't allowed under the new HOA regulations." I looked down at Duke, who was still growling low in his throat at the so-called officers. Duke was a highly trained K9, a German Shepherd with more discipline and intelligence than half the people I'd arrested. I exhaled slowly, struggling to keep my temper under control. "Karen, first of all, the Hoa has absolutely no authority over county law enforcement vehicles. Second, my dog is a working police K9, which means he's exempt from any ridiculous breed restrictions. And third, these men are not real law enforcement." Karen's smirk widened. "Oh, but they are. At our last Hoa meeting, we voted to establish a private security division, and as president, I have full authority to hire officers to enforce the rules." I stared at her, then back at the two stooges in front of me. This was getting better and better. "So, let me get this straight," I said, folding my arms. "You created your own police force to enforce HOA rules. And now you're trying to arrest the county sheriff?" Karen lifted her chin, defiant. "Not trying. Doing." Clipboard guy stepped forward, his voice cracking slightly. "Sir, if you do not comply, we will have no choice but to detain you for noncompliance and interfering with Hoa officers." That was it. I laughed, not a polite chuckle, not a restrained smirk, an actual, deep, uncontrollable laugh. The sheer absurdity of the situation was too much. These clowns actually thought they could arrest me. Sunglasses guy did not appreciate my reaction. "Sir, you need to come with us." I wiped a tear from my eye. All right, I'll humor you. Show me your legal authority. What agency certified you? What law allows you to detain a county sheriff? Clipboard guy hesitated, frantically flipping through his papers as if hoping an answer would magically appear. Karen, however, wasn't backing down. I don't need your approval, she snapped. I know my rights as HOA president. You're violating community standards, and you need to be removed. I sighed. Karen, step off my porch. She folded her arms. Or what? I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Karen's confidence flickered for the first time. Who are you calling? You'll see. Seconds later, the screech of tires filled the street. Two black SUVs roared to a halt, and out stepped my deputies, looking every inch the part with their real uniforms, real badges, and real guns. One of them, Deputy Martinez, walked up with a knowing smirk. Everything all right, Sheriff? I gestured towards the two fake officers. These gentlemen here claim they have legal authority to arrest me. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Under what jurisdiction? Clipboard guy's face drained of color. HOA, right? I said, and since impersonating a police officer is a crime, I'd love to hear your explanation for those fake badges and threats of detainment. Sunglasses guy turned to Karen like a scared child. You didn't say anything about impersonation being illegal. Karen took a step back, her perfectly coiffed head shaking. This is harassment. You can't do this. I'll report all of you. Martinez took a step forward. Ma'am, you're the one who sent fake officers to try and arrest the county sheriff. That's a serious charge, and considering you just admitted to organizing it, we're going to need you to come downtown for questioning. Karen's face twisted in panic. You can't do this to me. I run this neighborhood. I smirked. Not anymore, Karen. As Martinez pulled out a pair of cuffs, Karen screeched loud enough to wake the dead. You haven't heard the last of me. The HOA is above the law. Martinez clicked the cuffs around her wrists. Yeah, let's test that theory downtown. Karen was still shrieking as she was escorted to the car, a scene worthy of a reality show. The two fake officers, finally realizing they were in deep trouble, tried to make a run for it, only to be tackled by Duke, who took great joy in showing them exactly why he wasn't just a regular pet. As the doors slammed shut on the squad car, I took a deep breath and turned back towards my house, shaking my head. Just another day dealing with entitled people who thought they were above the law. At the station, Karen sat across from me in the interrogation room, arms folded. Her lips pressed so tightly together they looked like they might disappear. Her usual smug confidence was nowhere to be found. The two fake HOA officers sat in the adjacent room, looking even more miserable. Martinez had already gotten one of them to crack under pressure, which didn't take much since they were nothing more than overconfident security guards. Karen had recruited to play cop. The story was as ridiculous as expected. Karen had paid them under the table, promising them official HOA police status complete with some cheap badges and a grand speech about how they were above local law enforcement. Now, they were looking at charges for impersonating officers, unlawful detainment attempts, and trespassing. Karen, however, wasn't breaking so easily. She glared at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. You're making a mistake, she said through gritted teeth. I have connections. This is harassment. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. Karen, you hired two idiots to act like cops and try to arrest the actual sheriff. If anyone's guilty of harassment, it's you. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a misunderstanding. Martinez stepped into the room, holding a folder in his hand. He set it down on the table and slid it towards Karen. Misunderstandings don't usually involve multiple documented incidents of extortion. Karen flinched but quickly recovered, pretending not to care. I opened the folder, flipping through the neatly organized reports. It had taken less than an hour of digging to uncover what I already suspected. Karen's reign of terror over the HOA wasn't just about petty power plays. She had been issuing fake fines to homeowners, threatening them with legal action if they didn't pay up, and siphoning that money into an account she had set up under the HOAS name. A lot of the homeowners had blindly trusted her authority, assuming the fines were legitimate, but some had pushed back. Those who resisted mysteriously found their lawns spray-painted with violation notices, their mail missing, or their tires mysteriously deflated overnight. Coincidence? I didn't believe in those. I tapped the folder. Care to explain why thousands of dollars in HOA fees have been funneled into an account? Under your personal control? Karen sniffed. That money is for neighborhood improvements. Really? I asked. Because, according to these reports, you haven't approved a single project. In fact, most of the money seems to have been withdrawn in cash. She shrugged. I handle things personally. Martinez smirked. Yeah, because I also found receipts for expensive dinners, spa visits, and even a vacation to the Bahamas under the HOAS name. Real generous of you, spending all that money for the good of the community. Karen's fingers tightened around her arms, but she didn't respond. She knew she was caught. What she didn't know was how much worse it was about to get. I leaned forward. Here's the part that interests me the most. We pulled records from the last 5 HOA elections. You've been president for 6 years straight. Funny thing, though nobody remembers ever voting for you. Karen's jaw clenched, her eyes darting between me and Martinez. That's ridiculous. It is, I agreed. Almost like you've been rigging the elections. She scoffed. That's just a conspiracy theory. I slid another paper in front of her, then explained why every single election ballot we recovered has the exact same handwriting on it. Karen's face turned a deep shade of red. I had her now. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. She was calculating, trying to find a way out of the mess she had created, but there wasn't one. She had built her little empire on intimidation and fraud, assuming no one would ever look too closely. Now that we had, the entire thing was collapsing around her. Look, Karen, I said, my tone shifting to something more businesslike. You can sit here and keep pretending you've done nothing wrong, or you can start talking. Because if you think impersonating officers and running a fraudulent HOA is bad, just wait until we get into the financial crimes. We're talking serious time behind bars. Her confidence wavered for the first time. Financial crimes, she repeated, her voice quieter. Oh yeah, Martinez said cheerfully. See, extortion and fraud are one thing, but stealing HOA funds, falsifying records, and misusing money meant for public property, that's a whole other level. We're looking at felony charges, Karen, and once the homeowners find out about all this, I doubt any of them will be sympathetic. Karen's face twisted into an ugly grimace. This is a witch hunt. I shrugged. Call it whatever you want. It won't change the fact that we have enough evidence to bury you. She slumped in her chair, exhaling sharply. Fine. What do you want? I exchanged a glance with Martinez. That was the first crack in her defenses. She knew she wasn't walking away from this unscathed. The question now was how much damage she could control. I want a full statement, I said. Every scam, every dollar you took, every false violation you issued. You come clean, and maybe, just maybe, we'll work out a deal. She hesitated. And if I don't, Martinez chuckled. Then we let this go public, slap you with every charge we can find, and make sure you spend the next decade paying for it. Karen swallowed hard. She was cornered, and she knew it. After a long silence, she finally spoke. I need a lawyer. I wasn't surprised. That was fine by me. The moment she lawyered up, the case would go through proper channels, and with the evidence we had, there was no escaping the consequences. Still, I couldn't resist one last comment as I stood up. You spent years acting like you were above the law, I said. Now you're going to find out what it's like when the law fights back. As we walked out of the room, Martinez shook his head. You ever see someone so obsessed with power they can't even recognize when they've lost it all? All the time, I said. But it's always fun watching them fall. Back at the station, the investigation into Karen's HOA empire was already underway. Homeowners were coming forward with their stories, each one more ridiculous than the last. One woman claimed Karen fined her for having an unapproved front door color, despite the fact that her house had been that color for 10 years. Another man was fined for excessive garage door noise, a completely made-up rule. The more we dug, the clearer it became. Karen had turned the HOA into her own personal dictatorship. using it to line her pockets and bully anyone who dared oppose her. And now, it was all coming to an end. As I headed back to my office, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I had dealt with criminals of all kinds, thieves, gang members, con artists, but there was something uniquely satisfying about taking down a suburban tyrant who had convinced herself she was untouchable. Karen had played the role of queen for too long. Now she was just another case file, another criminal facing justice. And the best part? The neighborhood was finally free of her reign. The day of the HOA meeting arrived, and the community center was packed. Word had spread fast about Karen's arrest, and the homeowners had turned out in droves, eager to see the woman who had ruled over them with an iron fist finally get what she deserved. Some were furious, demanding refunds for the bogus fines they had paid over the years. Others were just excited to watch the spectacle unfold, enjoying the downfall of a self-proclaimed queen who had terrorized them for far too long. I sat near the back, arms crossed, letting the chaos unfold. The HOA board members, who had mostly been Karen's puppets, were looking more and more nervous as the homeowners hurled accusations at them. One woman stood up and waved a stack of papers in the air, her voice shaking with rage as she spoke. She had been fined thousands of dollars for a non-existent landscaping violation and had almost lost her home because of it. Another man described how Karen had manipulated the rules to have his shed torn down, just because she didn't like the color of it. The board members tried to calm things down, claiming they had no idea Karen had been running scams under their noses. That excuse didn't go over well. People were demanding resignations, threatening lawsuits, and shouting over one another. It was beautiful chaos, and for once, I didn't have to do a damn thing but watch. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more ridiculous, Karen showed up. She marched into the room like she still owned the place, despite the fact that she had just posted bail a few hours earlier. Her usual smugness was still there, though her appearance had taken a hit. The perfectly styled bob was slightly disheveled, and the expensive yoga outfit she wore wasn't quite as crisp as usual. But what really caught my attention was her expression somewhere between defiance and barely contained panic. The room went dead silent as she strode to the front, taking her usual position as if she still had authority. She cleared her throat and raised her hands, trying to quiet the murmurs. All right, everyone calm down," she said, forcing a tight smile. "There's been a lot of misinformation spread over the past few days, and I'm here to clear things up." The room did not calm down. If anything, the hostility grew. Someone from the back yelled, "You got arrested for stealing our money." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "That was a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. A misunderstanding? She had run the HOA like a personal crime syndicate, and she still thought she could talk her way out of this. "I want to remind everyone," Karen continued, her voice growing sharper, "that I have worked tirelessly to make this neighborhood the best it can be. I have enforced rules that keep our property values high and ensure that we all live in a respectable, well-maintained community. You extorted us," a man near the front snapped. "I protected this community," Karen shot back, "and frankly, I don't appreciate the way I'm being treated after all I've done for you." That was it. The dam broke. People exploded with anger, shouting over one another, listing off every injustice Karen had committed. The HOA board members, realizing that siding with her would be political suicide, started backtracking, distancing themselves from her as fast as they could. One of the board members, an older woman who had mostly stayed quiet during Karen's reign, stood up and held up a sheet of paper. "Karen," she said firmly, "the HOA charter allows for a president to be removed if a majority of homeowners vote for it. We have collected signatures. Over 80% of the community has signed this petition to have you removed, effective immediately." Karen's face drained of color. "You can't do that. We already have." The room erupted into cheers. Karen looked around wildly, as if searching for some kind of lifeline, but there was none. The very people she had ruled over were now celebrating her downfall, and there wasn't a thing she could do to stop it. She shook her head, her voice growing desperate. "You're all making a huge mistake. I built this community. Without me, This place will fall apart. No, someone called out. Without you, we can finally live in peace. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but it was useless. She had lost her power, her control, her illusion of untouchability. It was all gone. With nothing left to say, she turned on her heel and stormed out, shoving past people as she went. She nearly ran into me on her way out the door, her eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what I'm capable of." I gave her a slow smile. "Karen, you tried to have me arrested in my own house. I think I have a pretty good idea." She scoffed, turning away, and I watched her disappear into the night, the last remnants of her empire crumbling behind her. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was spectacular. The HOA board members who had enabled Karen were either voted out or resigned before they could be. An interim board was put in place, and they immediately started undoing the damage she had done. Refunds were issued, fines were thrown out, and new elections were planned. For the first time in years, people in the neighborhood actually smiled at each other instead of living in fear of petty HOA tyranny. Karen, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. With the criminal investigation into her financial fraud still ongoing, she was facing serious charges that weren't going away anytime soon. The bank had already placed a lien on her house, and it was only a matter of time before she lost everything. I heard through the grapevine that she had been banned from several HOA communities nearby after word of her antics spread. Apparently, she had tried to join another HOA board in a different neighborhood. But the moment people recognized her, they ran her out before she could even attend her first meeting. And the best part? Someone had filmed her meltdown at the HOA meeting and uploaded it online. It went viral. The title was something along the lines of "Crazy HOA Lady Gets Publicly Humiliated," and it had millions of views within days. The comment section was brutal. People dissected her downfall, mocked her outrageous claims, and turned her final words, "You have no idea what I'm capable of," into a running joke. Even weeks later, I still caught neighbors quoting it sarcastically whenever someone mentioned an HOA rule. As for me, life went back to normal, or at least as normal as it ever got in my line of work. Duke and I continued patrolling the county, dealing with actual criminals instead of entitled suburban tyrants. But every now and then, as I drove through the neighborhood, I couldn't help but smile at how much lighter things felt. No more ridiculous citations, no more bogus fines, no more whole police knocking on doors pretending they had any real authority. Karen had ruled with an iron fist for years, thinking she was unstoppable. But in the end, all it took was a little bit of justice, a whole lot of community outrage, and just the right amount of karma to bring her down. And if she ever thought about coming back, well, let's just say the neighborhood was more than ready for her this time.